Hi there folks, Skullgum140 back here today to do a film review for a change today because I figured I might as well take some time to talk a little bit about the film that I recently saw and that I've been highly anticipating for a while. And that would be, as the title above will tell you, the film Dredd, which of course is the film that's based off of one of 2080's most popular comic book characters, Judge Dredd. And what can I say about this film that hasn't already been said, except for... Okay, I saw it on the day it came out, September the 7th, which is kind of weird because normally when a film comes out, I'll wait for a few days until the ticket price dies down and then go see it. But I saw it on the day it came out and had enough time to think about it in greater detail just so I can gather my thoughts about it, whether or not the film was good or bad. And that's what I'm doing today. So what can I say about this film, except... go see it. Just go see it, because... this film really ended up being much better than I thought it was going to be, because Judge Dredd as a comic is a very satirical, very over-the-top, violent comic, and it's one of those that has helped make it's one of those comics that has made 2018 what it is, and it's one of the more recognizable comics out there. And keeping in mind as well that this film is in no way at all any relation, or it's not a prequel or a remake or a sequel to the 1995 Stallone interpretation of Judge Dredd, which of course, it took the look and the visuals from Judge Dredd, but it didn't take anything else in terms of its character and the way that he behaved. And the film had the Blade Runner aesthetic, which of course is what Judge Dredd has, but the film was kind of bad all around, and even though it's a bad film, it's a guilty pleasure by a lot of people. Even I couldn't like it at one point, but there you go. So, what can I say about this film? Just go see it. Just go see the film, because it's much better than I ended up falling. And it's a much better film than I thought it was going to be, because when I first heard that there was going to be a new Judge Dredd film, let's wind the clock back to 2008. When I first heard there was going to be a new Judge Dredd film, I was very eager to see... I was hyped to see this film from day one, because when some of the concept art was leaked, I was like, right, okay, they're taking the character back to square one, making him just be what he is. And that's what this film is, in that this is a very over-the-top, violent, not 100% loyal comic adaptation in recent years. But it's one of those that I think has made Judge Dredd what it is, and that's the good thing that I like so much about this film. I won't give away any spoilers regarding the film, because the film's been out for a few days, so if you haven't seen it, go see it. But I thought I wanted to just give you some idea of the plot. The plot, of course, is basically, it's more on the lines of an older cop showing a younger cop, well, judge in this case, the ropes, just taking the young trainee judge out there and just taking down the main villain of this film, which of course is a gang that deals the reality-altering drug slow-mo, which of course, just a brief spoiler, the drug of slow-mo is actually, it's a very weird drug, and what the drug does is that it's, when you take the drug, it makes everything around you just in slow-motion effect. And normally when it comes to slow motion in films, Zack Snyder does a good job of it, because with films like 300 and Watchmen, slow motion is one of those films that he does a very good job of, and this film does a very good job it does a very good job of that as well, of taking the drug slow-mo and just making it look very stylized and very gritty. And of course the leader of this gang, of course, is led by Cersei Lannister from Game of Thrones, Lena Headey, who plays the character Mama, who of course is a character that hasn't appeared in the comics, so I guess, I mean, when you're making a film that is based off a comic, the first thing you would either do is take one of the characters from the comics, or just make one completely out of your own, from the ground up. And I got nothing wrong with that. I like the character of Mama. She was very, the best way to really identify the character, in that she's one of the more violent characters out there that has a backstory that's knee-deep in blood. And it's she's one of those characters that really just doesn't give a shit and will pretty much just blow anything away and just make her drug profitable. which is exactly what it is. So really, this is nothing more than just your average heist film, in that you have the two heroes go in, kill terrorists, and then get out. And the whole majority of this film takes place in one of the blocks, one of the apartments that's called in the Judge Dredd universe. And the whole film, of course, takes place in this huge big building, this huge apartment. And it's of course it is what it is, and that the whole plot of this film revolves around the two judges, Judge Dredd and Judge Anderson, played by, I think it's Olivia Thirlby, who does a very good job of playing the character, by the way. And Judge Anderson is one of those characters that's very recognizable as well for having being able to read minds and has telekinesis and stuff like that, and that plays a huge role in the comics with the main villain, Judge Death, who I'll get onto in a little minute. Who I'll get onto in a few minutes. But anyway, the film is much better than I really thought it was going to be. But then again, the plot is simple, and simple is very effective. It's a simple plot, but I think it says, or does in this case, what it needs to do. And the film really is nothing more than just your average heist film, in that you go in, get the terrorist or get the drug dealer, and then get out scot-free. But in the process, just undergo the sheer nightmare and claustrophobia of being in this huge apartment block, or just the block in general, and just being confined to this very small space that's being controlled by this drug lord. And I guess that's really the whole plot in general, but to really understand the plot, you have to actually go see the film. But that's the long and short of the plot. It's a simple plot, and it actually really does a good job of bringing the character of Judge Dredd out a lot more than the 1995 film. In that, one thing I will say about this film is, I will say right now, Karl Urban as Judge Dredd, I was very ambiguous about, because I like Karl Urban as an actor. He has done some very good films, Lord of the Rings, Star Trek, take a pick. But when I heard he was going to play the lead role, I was very mixed about it, because I will admit that Stallone didn't do the character any justice, but this character really made the character believable, in that Judge Dredd, of course, is a very stone-faced, all serious character that will not take shit from anybody. When you look at this character straight away, that you can tell he's not fucking around. But Karl Urban really did play the character perfectly. I think that he matched the character perfectly, in that he looked the part. Because the one thing that I will say about this film, and this is just giving a little another spoiler away, but Karl Urban as Dredd, he doesn't take the helmet off. And that's the thing about the 1995 Judge Dredd, in that Stallone took the helmet off for a lot of reasons, which is because of the director Danny Cannon. But the director of this, Pete Travis, did such a good job of making the character a bit more believable. And if you know who Pete Travis is, just look him up on IMDb. He's made some very good films. But anyway, back on to Karl Urban. Yeah, Karl Urban really did make the character much more believable. And he wasn't my first choice at first. Because originally I wanted somebody like, Ray Stevenson. I think he would have done a much better job. I think Karl Urban made the character much more believable. And he made the character much more serious and much more intimidating, which is exactly what Judge Dredd is. He's an intimidating character, and he's one of those characters that just doesn't compromise. And this is going back to the Stallone film again, sadly, in the when Judge Dredd says, "I am the law, I am the law, I don't betray the law, I am the law." I know I keep referencing to the 1995 film. It's a bad film anyway. When he said "I am the law" in this, it actually makes the character much more serious and believable, because when you hear his voice as Judge Dredd, and I think Karl Urban said it better as well. It's like it's like a knife cutting through bone. That's what Karl Urban said when he described the voice of Judge Dredd, and that's exactly what this is. And even though Karl Urban went for the Christian Bale route, in that he gave this character this very Cookie Monster sort of voice. That isn't that in this film. It's a much more serious, believable voice, to the point where you can actually hear it. But Karl Urban really did such a great job of playing the character and making him a bit more believable. And the same with the rest of the cast as well. And Olivia Thirlby did a very good job playing Judge Anderson. Lena Headey played the character of Mama quite well. And the supporting cast as well did a very good job. there really wasn't anything wrong that I could see about this film, except for just the fact that it was a very good movie. I thought the budget for this film was a very good one. It was a very established budget at the time, and of course the majority of this film was shot in Johannesburg, South Africa, so they had to shoot it at a good location. But I thought the set pieces were actually did follow the plot quite well. And this is one of those films that, of course, relies on good action set pieces to tell a good story. Well, actually, no, sorry. It's one of those films that doesn't rely on good action set pieces and has no story. This is one of those films that has good action set pieces and a good story to follow alongside that, so that you can actually make the film a bit more believable. And it does that so well in the... Okay, the one thing I will say about this film is that this film actually does exactly what the Christopher Nolan Batman films have done, in that it takes... While this film, of course, maintains the science fiction, cyberpunk, Blade Runner aesthetic that, of course, Judge Dredd has had for a very long time, because, of course, Judge Dredd came out in the 70s, Blade Runner came out in the 80s, so that got the idea for this. Anyway, it still maintains that science fiction element, but at the same time, though, it manages to take the Judge Dredd universe and put it in the real world. And it does such a good job in that it makes, right down to the suit of Dredd, in the suit of Dredd in this is before Judge Dredd ever donned the golden armor, the golden shoulder pad, the chains, everything like that. This is Judge Dredd's outfit from like the 70s, from when the character was just being brought out, and it's all completely leather, as it should be, and there's nothing about that costume that would go, that doesn't look right. The costume of Judge Dredd in this actually it looks like a riot response, like a riot enforcer's costume, like a riot enforcer's clothing, and it looks really good, and it's something that you can actually take seriously to the point where it's actually when Karl Urban actually is wearing that costume to the point where he's moving around, he's dodging a lot of explosions, he's dodging a lot of gunfire. The costume actually matches perfectly with the character as well, and I know that in the future sequels to come he might don that the gold armor. But for the moment, though, this is just Judge Dredd just being what he is, just as a riot response character. And that's kind of the interesting thing about Judge Dredd as well. And if they bring in the costume that everyone recognizes him in, then okay, I think I can see that. But what else can I say about this film that I can cover? The soundtrack as well was fantastic. The soundtrack in this had that sort of very dark, very gritty cyberpunk edge that, of course, Judge Dredd has. But the soundtrack, it's not orchestral like Alan Silvestri's soundtrack was in the 1995 Judge Dredd. But the soundtrack in this was done by Paul Leonard Morgan, who's best known for doing things like, what did he do? He's best known for doing things like Limitless and Spooks and stuff like that. So he's a very well-known composer. And the soundtrack, of course, it's a very electronic soundtrack. And it matches the film so perfectly, because I don't think that the way that this film turned out to be, that an orchestral soundtrack would have worked. Because maybe it worked well for the 1995 film, but that was a different film altogether. But this film actually manages to bring the character out in a much more... in the way that he is. But the soundtrack to this was perfect. It was a very good soundtrack. The direction, very good. Pete Travers again. The writing by Alex Garland, who wrote 28 Days Later, was just as good. Again, I will say is that the plot is a little bit unoriginal, in that the plot, for anyone who's seen the film, is very similar to that of the film that came out recently called The Raid. In the film, of course, takes place in this huge apartment, and shit goes down, and it revolves around all these main characters that have to go, that have to survive this apartment block. The plot is similar to that. I won't give away anything else, but the plot it's a simple plot, and it does what it needs to do. So what else can I say about this film, except that the film's violence as well. Keeping in mind as well that Judge Dredd as a comic is a very over-the-top, satirical work of fiction. And the violence, even though most of it's all digital, it works. And the violence is good to the point where you can actually make the character, what's the best way to say it? Visceral. And much more primal, because the film, of course, is very primal in terms of its violence, and it's just over the top. It doesn't hold back, and that's a good thing. And that's why I like this film so much, is because the violence did such a great job, and that when things became violent in this film, I kept clinging to my seat, thinking that things were going to get better, and they did. Things got better in terms of the violence, and it just got better and better and better as the violence proceeded. And as soon as the film reached its end, the violence just got more chaotic, and it just worked, because you can't have a Judge Dredd anything without violence. There has to at least got hammer in my mouth. There has to at least be some degree of violence to keep the comic good, to keep the character believable, and to just make everything about this this world that Judge Dredd inhabits much more three-dimensional. So that's what it all boils down to. What else can I really say about this film? Just go see it. It's a very good film. I really think that this film, now that this film has gained the positive acclaim that it has deserved from day one, because seeing the trailer, seeing the TV spot, seeing the concept art, I knew from day one when I first heard that this film was going to come out that it was going to be very good. I had a lot of high hopes for this film, but now that this film's come out and it's gained the acclaim that it deserves, this is now the perfect time in this day and age of cinema to branch 2000 AD out to the mainstream audience, because 2000 AD as a whole is a very underground comic book company, and even though it's made some very good titles over the years, Strontium Dog, Button Man, ABC Warriors, Slain, Rogue Trooper, stuff like that, look in the whole back catalogue of 2000 AD and then you'll see what they've done. They've made some great stories, but not many people really are aware of them. This is a perfect time for Hollywood now to take some of those stories and make films out of them, because I would love to see a Slain film, or even an ABC Warriors movie, done in this exact same style. In fact, even done in the same way as Transformers, even without the whole jingoistic racism, which of course the Transformers films do have. But this is now a good time for 2000 AD to finally expand to the mainstream audience and branch out to a much more wider audience, just so that people can read more of their comics. Because they've made some great stories over the years, and I think that now this film has, it's doing very well over here in the UK. Once it comes to the US, and depending on what day you're watching this as well, the film will already be out, but the Western audience as well will finally get a good grasp of what the character is, a proper treatment of what the character is. And without going into too much, I really think that this film is above and beyond superior to the Stallone Judge Dredd that came out all those years ago. It takes the character in a much more primal, more loyal way than what Stallone's film did. And it just makes the character much more believable. Granted, there isn't much dimension in this film of the character to make him a bit more, have much more emotion. But the one thing I want to see as well is, I want to see this film have sequels. I want this film to have 2 sequels, so we can see a trilogy, because the one thing that I've wanted from day one from this film, I want to see the Dark Judges. I want to see the Dark Judges make an appearance, or even the Angel Gang make an appearance, or just any of the characters from any of the Judge Dredd comics to make an appearance in any of the sequels to follow, because at the moment the film's doing quite well, and that's good. But I want to see some sequels get made, because this is one of those films that really deserves to have sequels, among many other films that didn't get the right treatment that they deserve. For example, the 2011 Conan film is a good example, which deserves sequels. But I'll do a review of that at some point. But just to wrap this up, because I'm kind of reaching the 20-minute mark. This film is very good. I encourage anybody who's a fan of Judge Dredd to go see it. Any comic book fan to go see it. If you've never read any of the 2080 comics, if you're not aware of any of 2080's existence, go read any of the comics that they've done, or read Judge Dredd in general. But go see this film just to give you an idea of what the character is and the mythos of Judge Dredd in general. Because this film is a very over-the-top, violent. I don't want to say no holds barred, because that's a very overused word, but it's a film that doesn't hold back in terms of its violence. It's a film that really is a kick to the bollocks in terms of just being a very over-the-top science fiction action film. And it's a film that you can actually take the character seriously, but just go see it. That's really all I can say. But anyway, this has been the review of Dredd. Again, go see it. But this is just my review of it. If you want to go in with an open mind, please go ahead. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion regarding films. But anyway, just to finish this off, go see it. It's very, very good. Take care.